Financial peace of mind is a goal many of us are trying to achieve. However, if you're someone with high debt levels or someone with a low credit score, sometimes financial freedom can often feel out of reach. On the podcast today, I'm joined with Dani Palmer, CMO at Loqbox, to discuss how you guys can improve your credit score as well as build a richer life. Hello, Dani. How are you today?
I'm very good, thanks, Ola. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for coming on the podcast with me today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Bit of a journey, but we've got you in London, and I'm very excited to chat all about how people can build their credit score and also to build a richer life. But before we delve into that, please introduce yourself to everyone listening.
Yeah, great. Well, I'm Dani. I'm the CMO at Loqbox. I live near Glastonbury, so yes, a bit of a trek to get here today, but it's very fun to be in the city. I've been working in startups and scale-ups for the last 15 years and with Loqbox for 5 years now, which is very different business when I joined to where it is now. So just very proud and privileged to have been on that journey with the business so far.
Yeah, and like we were discussing before we started recording, 5 years ago, so much has changed, hasn't it? Like the announcement of lockdown to now, obviously you're here in the studio with me. I can imagine lots has changed. But for those listening, what is Loqbox?
Yeah, so great question. I mean, I'll start with the problem that Loqbox is here to solve, and that's money. It's a big problem for many people. And, here are some sobering facts. It's the leading cause of stress in the UK.
Yeah.
It really affects our personal relationships. So it's the number one reason that we argue with our loved ones or even why couples divorce. We now have 20 million people in the UK living in financially vulnerable circumstances, and that has grown rapidly over the last few years. Cost of living obviously playing a key part in that as well. So what's really clear is that money's on top of people's minds more than ever, and Loqbox can really help with that in terms of helping people to build the financial foundations that they need to succeed. So our mission is to give everyone access to a richer life, helping people to really have happier and healthier relationships with money. And we offer people sort of easy ways to build their credit scores, grow their savings, and learn about how it all works. And that's really working. We've helped over 1 million people so far. Yeah, quite a journey. So a lot of people, but we are just getting started at the same time. So on average, people using Loqbox will grow their credit scores by 200 points in a year.
That's impressive.
Really impressive. And 80% of Loqbox members, report feeling more motivated, confident, or knowledgeable about money after having used Loqbox, which is something that I'm personally super proud of. So in a nutshell, that's Loqbox and the problem that we're here to solve.
And you guys are clearly doing an amazing job. And like you said, you're just getting started. I can't wait to kind of delve into more of Loqbox and how users can kind of use that to their advantage when it comes to building that richer life. But I guess before we delve into all of that, I've got 2 quick fire questions for you, just to warm you up in the hot seat.
Go for it.
So one of my questions for you, Dani, is what's one guilty pleasure you like to spend your money on?
Cool. So this is potentially a boring answer, but I am going to go with having a proper coffee.
Okay.
Yes, I have read that I can save hundreds of pounds a year, right, if I kick the habit. But there's a meme that's doing the rounds on social media that really makes me laugh, which is, did you know if you give up coffee, you can lose up to 87% of what little joy you still have left in your life? And, I think for me, when we talk about guilty pleasures, I do wonder if I even feel that guilty about it, because it does bring me a lot of joy. And, I think there's a lot of shame around money and how people choose to spend it. And so I value having a proper coffee, so I'm going to make sure that is something that I can say yes to.
You know what? I respect it, Dani, because there's probably lots of people listening to the podcast that are also the same, that will always go and get their Starbucks, their Pret, or their Costa. I'm not a coffee drinker, but I'm sure many people can relate to the fact that, on their journey to work, they need that coffee, they need that little pick-me-up. And I actually made a LinkedIn post the other day about it, saying that you can still achieve financial freedom with getting your coffee. I don't think it should be a big taboo if you want to choose to spend your money elsewhere, right?
Totally. And it's similar with, you know, the headlines around, oh, millennials love avocado
Absolutely.
and toast. And do you know how many portions of avocado and toast is it to get on the property ladder? It's crazy.
Millions,
that these,
like, millions.
Exactly. So if you want to have a nice brunch and a coffee, you know, go for it. It's really the big things that make the difference anyway.
Yeah, exactly. We'll be touching on financial habits shortly. So I guess my second question for you is also, what's one piece of financial advice you would tell your younger self?
Yeah, this is a great question. So I think if there's one thing that I would tell my younger self, it would probably be that it's not about the amount you have in your bank account that matters. It's about being able to confidently and intentionally use it to build the life that you want. And so I think for that reason, money is not just about numbers, it's about like our emotions, it's about our relationship decisions, it's about our priorities. And yeah, I think that it's often a multiplayer game as well in that respect.
Yeah, I agree. And I really like that piece of advice, because I'd probably tell my younger self, alongside investing, that very piece of advice, in the sense that there's so much more to money than just having that number. I think it's about, how do you feel when you're spending money? Can you improve that relationship? Can you remove the feelings of guilt? Because I used to really badly suffer with financial anxiety, and I used to really hate spending money, even though I needed to spend the money on certain things. So yeah, I think that's probably a piece of advice I would tell myself.
Definitely. And, you know, really think about what you value, and how to have more of that.
Yeah.
But I think shame is really powerful when it comes to finances. And yeah, if we can overcome that and feel a bit better about things and doing it our way, then that's great progress.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm sure you've probably come leaps and bounds since you were like 18, 19. So yeah, I love that piece of advice. So thank you for sharing that, Dani. Obviously on the podcast today, we're chatting about financial freedom and building a richer life. What is financial freedom, and what does it look like to you?
Cool. So I really believe that money should be empowering and not intimidating.
Yeah.
And I think financial freedom's at the heart of that. So for me, being able to say yes to things, you know, like my proper coffee.
Yes.
Without the fear, without the shame, without the stress, and on our own terms. And I think that financial freedom is less a destination and more of a practice and a journey to go on. And I think it's very different for everyone, right?
Yeah.
So for some people, home ownership is very important. For others, it might be being able to travel the world, or simply feeling at ease when we check our bank balance. I think for too long, society has had this very rigid view of what success looks like, which is generally get an education, get a job, get married, have kids, get promoted, retire, etc. But actually success is not one size fits all. And I think that's part of financial freedom too. And you know, bringing it back to Loqbox, very much the inspiration behind Your Money, Your Moves campaign, which is so much about you know, it's personal, it's empowering, it's on your own terms. And I mean, I very much see it as sort of a self-care, self-love practice.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's kind of like what you just said, and also bringing it back to what you mentioned in your piece of financial advice. It's not just about the numbers, it's about how you feel when you're spending the money you have. And I think for me now, I think financial freedom is to be able to spend money on the things I enjoy without the feeling of guilt or having to be like, can I really afford this? And I've always said to myself and my friends that I know I've made it in life when I can comfortably book like a business class flight without even having to like worry about it and like think twice about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to get to that point. So maybe
I'm not at that point yet, but when we're at that point, we'll both like invite each other, right?
Sounds great.
No, exactly that. And I love that. And I guess, you know, when it comes to like people maybe listening to the podcast, they might have high debt, maybe a negative credit score. How can that impact their ability to achieve financial freedom?
Yeah, so high debt and a negative credit score can feel really, really tricky. It can be a tricky situation to be in. And so for anyone listening who's in that situation and finding it hard, I think the sort of first thing I'd want to say is you're not alone.
Yeah.
And so digging into those things a bit more, for high debt, it can feel like we have less breathing room financially. It can eat away at our income. It can reduce our ability to save money and also to handle emergencies.
Yeah.
For low credit score, it can make accessing affordable credit really difficult, if not impossible, at a time when you need it most. And those two things taken together, high cost of repayments, and low credit score, they can really feed into each other in a way that makes it hard to make progress. And the impact of that can be sort of restriction on life choices. So things from housing to career moves, starting business, that can be tricky because your finances are going to have the final say on that. It can also make everyday costs much higher. So interest rates, of course, insurance premiums, or, perhaps you're having to pay upfront deposits because you haven't got the credit. I think potentially less spoken about, but the negative impact on our mental health.
Yes, that's a big one.
Yeah, it is a really, really big one. So things like the financial stress leading to anxiety or reduced confidence. Of course, ending up in a situation where you're having to make a lot of short-term decisions. I think people feel a lot of shame. They can feel like they've failed. And that can mean that they're less likely to open up to friends and family or seek support from organisations that can really help. But, I think it is possible to reclaim financial freedom, and that probably looks like taking a strategic approach to paying off debts, to rebuilding credits, to moving from reactive to proactive money habits. I think the trick here is really small and steady steps. And I think even, opening up and talking to friends and family can take the edge off and make it feel a bit less overwhelming and less isolating.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's such a shame because there probably are a lot of people that listen to the podcast that do feel that way, and they feel like there's no way out. And it's the reason why we have these conversations on the podcast, is to educate and to empower people to believe that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, right? And this is why I'm really glad we're having this conversation today, because I know people have individually reached out to me and they're like, Ola, this is my debt. I feel like I'm the only one suffering in this cost of living crisis, and I'm here, and we're both here to actually share that you're not the only one alone. I think debt is a massive taboo, and I think it's really important that we remove that stigma, and we do on the podcast. But I guess obviously for those that maybe have low credit score, want to improve their credit, but can't because obviously borrowing becomes more expensive. Firstly, what actually is a credit score, and how does Loqbox help people build that credit score?
Cool. So 2 big questions. So what is a credit score? Do that one first. We have a little bit of time, so I get the full answer. So I think it's really important to be aware that the credit score that we look at isn't the same one that lenders look at.
Okay.
And that's important because it's not actually our credit scores that matter, it's our credit histories. And our credit histories are our credit reports, are kind of like our financial reputations, our financial health reports. And lenders are going to use these to decide whether they trust us with lending money to us. But it's also used for things beyond loans and credit cards. It can be used for lots of things. Car insurance, mobile phone contracts, and recruitment too. So it really matters. And the credit scores that we see are generated by the credit reference agencies. So in the UK, that is TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. And they're created as sort of helpful indicators for us as consumers to get an idea for how a lender may view us were we to apply for credit. But actually, individual lenders are going to create their own credit score, their own calculation for us, and this is going to vary from lender to lender, and it's going to use our credit scores as an input, our credit histories, I should say, as an input. It's going to use other data sources that we might share as inputs into that. The good news is that if we're not happy with our credit histories, we can improve that.
Yes.
And, you know, things like Loqbox can help. And the better our credit, then the better the offers we're going to get are. And that's going to look like better interest rates. That's going to look like more access to financial products generally. I think just while we are talking about this, probably worth mentioning to sort of listeners that we do have 3 credit reports. So we have a report with each of the main credit reference agencies. And we really recommend people go and have a little look at each of those credit reports, because sometimes there can be mistakes on them that need correcting. So it's really worth making sure that those are up to date.
Yeah.
On your second question, how does Loqbox help to build credit histories, credit scores? So I'm obviously biased, but I think that what we do is really cool, because we do make it simple and easy for people to build their credit and also to sort of attain lifelong financial skills for the future. So Loqbox membership is £2.99 per week, and we will give members a line of credit to cover this, which means that each of those payments are going to be reported to the credit reference agencies in order to help people build their credit histories. And then we have a number of other features within the Loqbox membership to help people achieve their goals. So members love our savings feature. Why? Because building a savings habit can be really, really tricky to start.
Yes.
And also because the big money goals that people have will usually take not only good credit, but also a chunk of savings to achieve. Okay. So we can think about home ownership as a popular one from this. You know, you not only need your mortgage, but you also need your deposit, and those things are often hefty. So with our savings features, members will choose how much they want to save each month, between £20 and £200, and they'll commit to doing that for a year.
Okay.
Loqbox will then give them a 0% APR loan for that amount in the form of a digital savings voucher. And that means that each month, as they make the payment towards their savings, we're reporting that to the credit reference agencies, and that's helping you to build your credit history and also consistently build your savings. And then at the end of 12 months, you know, hey presto, you've got your savings, and you can put that towards your goal. Yes. And then the next feature we have is if you rent, then we have a feature which is all about rental reporting, which is to make sure that your biggest monthly outgoing is also something that's contributing towards your credit history. Yes. And this really gets at the heart of something that many people feel frustrated about, which is I've been rejected for a mortgage because the lender isn't sure I'm going to be able to keep up with this monthly payment. Yeah, I'm making this payment to my rent every month.
Nearly double
which
for some
is,
people.
if not the same, then more than. And that is deeply frustrating. So what we're helping people to do here is to make that payment visible and make that count towards the creditworthiness. So taken together, we have, you know, the membership, the savings, and the rental reporting, all contributing to helping people go their credit. And then with that, Loqbox also gives people access to a personalised financial plan and to expert content, which is arguably the most important part of all of this, because this is where the lifelong knowledge is going to come from to help people successfully navigate the UK financial system, which, you know, as you know, is one of the most complex in the world. Yep. And also to do it in a way that really works for them. So Loqbox, you know, you can cancel at any time. We always recommend that people do this instead of missing payments, because missed payments are going to harm your credit score. And you can try Loqbox for free for 7 days, so you can check it out, see if you like it. And yeah, I have to say this, but improvements to your credit score are not guaranteed, and missing payments will harm your credit score.
No, very comprehensive answer there. And you know what I love about Loqbox, because I've known about you guys since I started All Things Money, so it's a privilege to have you on the podcast today, in the fact that I think in the UK it's really hard because we're expected to borrow money just to prove the fact that we can borrow money wisely, right? And not everyone is comfortable with the idea of taking out a loan or taking out a credit card directly from the bank, which for them, some people might impact their ability to buy a house or, improve their credit history. So I really love the product. So I guess that Loqbox can be a great alternative for those that maybe don't want to take out loans or credit cards, right?
Yeah, so I think really a starter product for learning how to manage credit responsibly. I think there are two really interesting points in what you've just said.
Yeah.
The first is really about financial education. We do not get it in schools.
No.
We come out of schools and universities.
Yep.
Maybe we know pi to x digits, but we're not really sure what the difference between direct debit or standing order is, or what APR is. And if it were anything else in our lives that had the potential to negatively impact us through mismanagement as much as money and finances does, we would have qualifications. And that's another thing, we talk about how people feel shame, how they feel like they failed. It breaks my heart because it's not really set up to succeed in the first place with it. And then I think, another point you make there is that credit history, right? It's about having a credit history. So naturally, people who are younger, just by the fact that they are younger, have less of a history. And I think that can feel quite difficult because you need to build up, and yes, taking out credit cards and loans just to achieve that is maybe a bit extreme if you don't need the credit. So we're really proud of what we've built with Loqbox and offering people like easy, simple ways in order to build that credit history so they can go and achieve the things that matter to them, and the knowledge to help them succeed in the future. It's really important to us.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I guess there's probably a few people listening to the podcast today and they're thinking, I don't have high levels of debt. That means I just don't have a credit score, or my credit score is like automatically high. I don't know. What are some like myth busting tips you can maybe share for those that maybe have never taken out credit, or they don't have debt and maybe just don't think they have a credit score at all?
Yeah, so I think the point around I haven't had credit before, therefore either my credit score is fine, or a lot of people actually haven't heard of credit scores at all and aren't aware that these credit reports are collected. So being credit invisible is a thing when you can't find your credit report with the credit reference agencies, and that's an issue for people because as and when they do come to take on debt, which for a lot of people will be a mortgage perhaps. One thing that we hear from people all the time is, I wish I'd known about this sooner, I wish I'd started this sooner. And it goes back to that financial education piece as well. Like if you didn't know about it, what you're supposed to do. So I think this point around you don't have to have made mistakes in the past for your credit score, your credit history to be a blocker for you moving forward is probably one of the big myths.
And I'm glad we just debunked that, because I do get a lot of people that are a little bit confused about credit scores and how it actually works. But I guess you could kindly mention that Loqbox has a range of amazing features which guys you definitely need to check out. But what are some goals some of your users have managed to achieve using Loqbox?
So the second most common goal that people have after generally building their credit score is home ownership. And that is a massive goal, right? On
Absolutely.
on average, it takes 9.4 years to achieve. It's really tricky, right? So we're really privileged and proud to be able to help people on that journey towards home ownership. And then other goals are things like buying a car, going on holiday, starting a family. It's these big life goals or milestones that have a financial reality attached to them. And people often join Loqbox at a trigger point in their life where they've decided that they want to take action towards these goals, which is great. But I would also love to see more people proactively joining Loqbox to build their credits so that they are ready for any of those money moves as and when they come up, you know, as saying that a lot of people just wish they'd started sooner and knew about this sooner.
Yeah. And I guess we talk about, you know, a lot of us are quite young. We've never had financial education in school. So what age can people sign up to Loqbox?
18.
Okay, amazing. So guys, if you are 18 and above, then yeah, definitely go check out Loqbox. But I guess the question that I have for you, Katie, is before people download Loqbox, is there anything people need to be aware of before they go and download it?
Absolutely. So just with any financial product, you know, going into it with your eyes open is really important. Loqbox is one of the best ways to build your credit, but there are a few things to be aware of. So firstly, results are not guaranteed. So Loqbox can help you build your credit, but improvements are not guaranteed or immediate. Second, missing payments matters.
Yes.
So missed payments will be reported and can negatively harm your credit. So that's why we always really recommend if you are worried about missing payments, then please cancel. Thirdly, it would be that you may see a dip before you see a rise. And again, this is really normal. Why does it happen? When you add a new line of credit to your report, lenders aren't quite yet sure how you're going to manage that.
Yeah.
So this will likely recover in a few months, but that's really normal. And then also your wider finances matter. So if you are on an IVA, a debt management plan, or you think you're likely to be in the near future, then Loqbox might not be quite right for you for right now. And issues or missed payments with other accounts can impact your credit negatively, even if you are using Loqbox.
Yeah. Thank you very much for explaining the temporary hit to your credit score that might take place, because I think a lot of people stress massively, because I work with a lot of young adults, about their credit score, right? And they have a mini heart attack if it drops by 50 points or it drops by, 60 points, and they think that's the be all or end all. And I think, would you mind just reassuring people that credit scores can recover? Because I think when they see like a maybe mini dip, that's whether or not they're using Loqbox at all. I think they all start to panic and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to buy a house, or I'm never going to be able to get that phone bill. So yeah.
Yeah, it's completely normal. I mean, I think a lot of the services now that we monitor our credit scores through are really helpful, because they can give you the insights on what might be behind it. But I think in the same way that if you stand on the scales and maybe you weight shift a little bit, you know, that can be completely normal. It can be for a variety of reasons, can go up as well as down. Of course, you want to check that it's not something like a mistake on your credit report or fraud or anything like that. But more often, it could be you've moved house, a new address. It could be a new line of credit. It could be, you know, when you take broadband deals out and you get a hard credit check and you have a number of hard credit checks on your report, that, you know, there are a number of things that contribute towards that credit score. But as I explained earlier, it really is that credit history rather than that credit score that matters. So as long as you're steadily making payments in full and on time, then you're successfully building that credit history.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that, because, like I mentioned, a lot of people are pressured about their scores, as they should be. But I think a lot of people like to panic when they don't need to. And I guess, you mentioned about checking our credit report. So for those that maybe listen to the podcast that have never checked their credit report, or they would like to, how can they actually go about checking that?
Yeah, so you want to go to each of the three main credit reference agencies, so Experian, Equifax and TransUnion, and you can find your credit reports there.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that, because again, I think a lot of people think when it comes to managing their finances and actually having like a money date, like as I like to call it, a lot of people think it's like such hard work. And honestly, guys, if you're listening, it does take like 5 to 10 minutes of work to actually just get in contact to find out where you are at with your credit history and your credit score. And I think it's really important, like you mentioned, to check, because you actually might have mistakes on there, or you might have, I don't know, fraud and things, especially fraud at the moment where, so many scams are taking place at the moment. Would you agree?
Totally. Especially with our virtual worlds just get bigger and more connected, more visible, right? I think one of the really common points for credit reports to make sure they're up to date as well. It's actually not necessarily fraud or a mistake, but it might be a financial connection that you have had historically, perhaps with a partner or a housemate where you've had a joint account, or another similar financial product that you've managed. And if that person that you're connected to has maybe they've missed payments, maybe they have a poorer credit history than you can be negatively impacted by association. So it is really worth, if those financial associations are not relevant anymore, you will need to proactively ask the agencies to update them.
Wow, that's one I didn't even think of. And this is why I always bring experts on, because, I wouldn't have thought that one myself. So, guys, I think that's another really important point made there. Like, if you have previous partners, housemates, like you mentioned, if you shared with someone at university or post-uni, then, those are the connections you really need to check. Or if you've bought a house with someone in the past. So, wow, that's a really, really important point. And I guess, Dani, before we round up today's podcast episode, for those maybe looking to further improve their credit history, their credit score, do you have any other additional tips?
Firstly, it's a journey. Embrace it. We spoke about credit building, but also financial freedom as an act of self-love and self-care. I know a lot of people find money really uncomfortable, but I think that with a bit of practice, it can be something that we enjoy. And I think being patient is a key part of this. Building credit scores, growing savings, designing the life that we want, achieving financial freedom. It takes time. Give yourself some time. I think also, remember, it's your money, your moves. So this is very much about you. What do you value? What do you want? What works for you in terms of achieving this? It should be empowering. It's your richer life. We say about credit scores, but to what end? What do you want the credit score for? What are you trying to achieve? I think thirdly, I'd say talk about it more. It's so great that you're doing what you're doing and helping people to talk about it more, because you're right, money has been far too taboo for far too long, and I think it would become much less of a stressful topic if we all spoke about it a bit more and shared how we're feeling. And finally, you can do it, right? Like you can build a financial life that you're proud of and achieve the goals that you want, and the financial freedom and peace of mind that goes alongside that.
I think those final tips actually rounded off the podcast perfectly, to be honest. I don't have anything else to add to that. I think, like you mentioned, your money, your move. So why are you looking to achieve what you want to achieve? I think making sure your goals are your own goals, not because they're societal pressures, I think is really, really important. So I think you beautifully round off the podcast there, Dani. But I guess before I let you go, if anyone is keen on downloading Loqbox or would like to check out the app with the 7-day free trial, where can they go to do so?
They can go to loqbox.com. That is Loqbox with a Q. And they can get started in a couple of minutes.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Dani, for joining me on the podcast. Guys, as always, all of the links to Loqbox will be in the podcast description. But Dani, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me.